Hello, friends. Welcome to the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Culberg, and today I want to talk a bit about boundaries versus preferences, because that seems to be a recurring theme in my life currently. People asking, is this a boundary or is this merely a preference? And if you don't yet follow me on YouTube, if you search in Google Suzanne Culberg YouTube, one of the highlights of having an unusual name, you'll find it. If you go to the playlist coaching calls, I did a deep dive coaching session with Deanna about boundaries and preferences. So if you enjoy this episode, you'll enjoy that as well. I'm going to start with a story. So yesterday was my kids' sports carnival. So in Australia, they have the athletics carnival where you do the short races, 100, 200 meter sprints, 800 meters. I don't think 800 meters is short personally, but maybe that's just because I'm not a very fit person. And they also do, well, they did at my kids' school, long jump and high jump. Anyway, I just assumed, and we all know what happens when we assume, that the event would be at the same location it was last year. And I asked my daughter, and she's like, yeah, it's at, said location. And I was like, cool, I'll see you there. Now, the event was due to start at 9:30, and I don't know about anyone else, but my kids' school, like, they do their best, and this is by no means a complaint, but they never start on time. Like last year, I got there dutifully at 9:20 for the 9:30 start and didn't even kick off to 10. So I was like, this year, I'll aim to get there at 9:45 because that way they'll be closer to starting and I won't sit around in the cold because it's winter here. Anyway, all this to say, driving there, it's about 9:45, 9:45. It's like, wow, it's so easy to find a park. Now, that should have been a clue, but I found a park really easy and I'm walking, I'm like, it's very quiet. Like you think a sports carnival, 500 or more kids cheering, you think it'd be quite noisy. And it was eerily quiet. There was a bit of sound, but not much. And when I round the corner to the field, I see some people playing cricket. And I was like, this sinking feeling, I'm in the wrong place. So then I'm madly calling up the school email thing and like, where is this event? Fortunately, it wasn't too far away. So I jump back in the car and I drive. When I get there and there's no parking and I can hear the kids screaming with the windows wound up, I'm like, this is the right place. So I get there and unfortunately I'd missed my daughter run the 800 meter. They run the longest distance first. I don't understand that. As I said, like as a particularly not fit person, I would be kind of exhausted after running that to then do the sprints. But anyway, so I'd missed her do the 800 meters, which is her event. She's more of a distance runner than a sprinter runner. But when I walked over to her, she's like, you went to where we went last year, didn't we? And I was like, yes. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry, because she had told me it was there. But all that to say, I saw the rest of the day. She also ran in the 100, the 200. She did the high jump. She did the long jump. Now, I don't know about you, those of you who are listening, and you can let me know in the comments when you went to school, what it was like. I couldn't stand any of the sporting events. I'm not particularly sporty, and it was forced. Like you had to participate. It was compulsory. My kids' school, it's non-compulsory. So attendance is compulsory and they encourage you to cheer for your friends and your teammates and everything, but you don't have to participate. And I wonder if that's part of the reason that it was just a whole different experience, but it was quite positive and uplifting. And my daughter, Xanthi, who has never done long jump or high jump before, barreled into it with gusto, didn't do particularly well, but the witnessing someone have a go, like have a crack, and even though didn't didn't even qualify, that she was like, that was so much fun. It was kind of healing for little Suze who was laughed at and teased and compulsorily forced to participate and didn't do well. The fact that Xanthi could, have a go, come last, not qualify, but everyone was like cheering just as much as if she'd won. There was something really, really healing about that. Now, the reason I opened with this was because I thought it was a funny story that I was that mum who turned up at the wrong venue and then turned up at the right one. And I also cheered loudly, like very, very loudly. So much so that one lady's like, oh, did your daughter just win? I was like, well, no, she came last, but man, she had a go. And we had a laugh about that. But not that long ago, I got an email from someone who was like, I love your podcast. I just really wish that you would get to the point and you wouldn't open with stories or preambles or stuff about your family. Like, she was slightly more polite, but was basically like, I don't care about your family. I just want to get to the nuts and bolts of the show. Now, from my point of view, that is somebody expressing a preference. Like, if you listen to this show and you don't like my preamble stuff about what else I have going on, I trust that you can hit the skip button and just skip the first 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever until I get to the main point. Or find a podcast that is, here's the 3 things I'm going to talk about today. Here they are. Here's the 3 things I talked about. See, from my point of view, my preference, if I want something that is that stringent, I would just read a blog or an article or a book. Like, I love the podcast format, medium. I love the conversation. I love hearing about the host's life outside of whatever they're delivering today. I love feeling like a fly on the wall and like I'm a part of that. And it makes me reflect on my life and my childhood and things. So if you don't like that about the show, as I said, you're welcome to skip forward 5 minutes or to not listen. There's like millions of podcasts in the world. You don't have to listen to this one. I hope that you do, and I trust that you enjoy it. Otherwise, I don't know why you're listening. But also, you're allowed to express your preference. You can say to me, hey, like, I would prefer you did this. That's cool. But I don't have to then go and change my show to accommodate your preferences. You're welcome to find something else. When it becomes a boundary, I think a boundary is different from a preference. Like, I prefer this kind of show, or I prefer this kind of format, or I prefer personally, if I go to the movies, that there's no ads. I don't mind the trailers, but I don't really like the ads. It's always the same ads, so much so that I could probably say a lot of them verbatim. So I time my movie going. Like, if the movie's starting at 11 a.m., I'll get there about 10 past, because I know the ads go for between 10 and 15 minutes and then the trailers start, so that I don't need to watch them. So that's how you express preferences, and you're welcome to have it, but they're not demands. A boundary is something different. So say, I can think of an example. In my household, there are no shoes permitted in the house. It's a shoes off environment. You leave your shoes by the front door, and then you can come into the house. That is a boundary, because I'm not vacuuming, mopping, when people walk the outside into the inside. If it's your own house, you might have a different boundary. You might be like, we always have shoes on. There's no bare feet in our house. Bare feet creep me out, so you've got to have your feet covered. So you might tell people they have to keep their shoes on, or you might provide them with slippers or whatever. Another example, this household is a non-smoking household. Like, if you're a smoker, you do you, but you're not smoking inside my house. You can go outside and smoke and then come back in. If you are a smoker and you allow smoking in your house, people may choose not to enter it because they're non-smokers. That's okay. Maybe they're going to meet up and hang out with you at the park, or, at a venue that's non-smoking or something. But like, you get to decide what the boundaries are within your space. People can express their preferences. I'd like you to get straight to the point. I'd like you to have written transcripts. I'd like you to have a blog, all these sorts of things. But that does not mean that you need to change what you're doing to accommodate other people's preferences. You get to decide your boundaries, and think you've got boundaries without even knowing it. You have boundaries about touch. Are you a hugger? Are you a non-hugger? You have boundaries about, things like, how, is your in your house, do people have to take their shoes off? Are people allowed to smoke, consume alcohol? You have dietary boundaries about what you eat and what you don't eat. There's so many things that we have without even thinking we need to explicitly state. But if we go to a new area, a new state, a new country or continent, there's a whole different things about, boundaries and what isn't allowed. And the thing I really want to get to today is, when somebody starts to state a boundary with you or initiates a difficult conversation that can feel awkward on both ends, instead of feeling that they're trying to control you, or they're trying to judge you, or they're trying to tell you what you've done wrong, if you instead see it as a compliment, because it means that they want to continue the friendship, the relationship with you, and they trust that you care enough to listen. So say, people email me about my show, and state their preferences, that I don't need to take on. That's not a boundary thing. It's like, if you don't change this about your show, Suzanne, I won't listen. Okay, cool. find another show. Best of luck. Thank you so much for listening. If they were a paid client and they were not happy with my service, then that would be a whole different conversation we'd have, because this is a free show. This podcast is free. You're not paying for this. Some people do send me a donation. Thank you very much if you do. I appreciate it. Then the link is in the show notes always. There's a PayPal link. I love it when I get, some monetary compensation. But it's not a hired service. If we were working together and I was perpetually late, like that would annoy me too, just saying. And you're like, Suzanne, I'm not going to hire you if you don't, turn up for the session on time, 100%. I remember one person I was chatting to once, and they'd hired a coach, and she said that the coach was always doing the dishes. It was voice only, and she could hear the water sloshing and the clinking of the dishes. And she was like, I felt like not listened to, unheard, not important, and I was paying this person a significant amount of money and I didn't even have their full attention. 100%, that could be a conversation you could have. Like, there are some people I know, Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies, he does what's called puttering sessions. So he's really clear on the sales page. I will be puttering. I might be walking, I might be washing my dishes, I might be at the dog park, whatever. My nominal rate for coaching is this. The puttering sessions is this. So you get it discounted because I will be doing something else. In that case, it's explicitly stated at the beginning. Then you can decide, do I want to participate in this or do I not? But if they don't have it anywhere and you're paying for their full attention and they're washing the dishes or riding their horse or in the paddock, or, you can hear them pause to yell at their kids at the soccer game. Like, imagine if I was coaching someone at my kids' carnival yesterday. Just a minute, it's Xanthi's turn. Go, Xanthi! Yeah! Okay, I'm back. Now, what were you saying? Like, holy smokes, if somebody had thoughts on that, I would have thoughts on that too. But to other people, that would be no worries at all. But when we start to have these conversations and say, actually, to me, I don't feel heard, or I don't feel listened to, I don't feel cared for, then you can open up a conversation, express a boundary, and then the difference between a boundary and a preference is, if you are partaking, if you're going to someone's house and you prefer that they did it this way, but you're not going to set a boundary with them in their own home because that's kind of awkward. Or if you're listening to somebody's free show and you've got some advice that you want to give, potentially unsolicited, but whether or not they take it, you're stating your preference. That's a difference between you saying, well, if you don't do this, I'm not going to listen to your show anymore. That is a boundary, but you don't need to listen to that show. You can find the show that you like and listen to that. If somebody has shoes off in their house and for whatever reason you don't want to, you don't have to visit their house. You could be like, how about we meet at a park or at a coffee shop or at somewhere else? Like, sometimes I think we see these boundaries as, finite and final, but they can be opening up conversations or other places that you want to meet. So it's the big thing that I hope that you take from this is, if somebody starts to have a boundary conversation with you, it's not a judgment. It's not that they want it to, it's actually a good thing. It's a compliment because they want to continue the conversation. It's like when you get the call from the school and they're like, about your child's behavior, and part of you wilts inside and it's like, oh my goodness. And it's not that they're calling you to judge you as a parent or to shame you or to tell you that your child's wrong or bad. It's that they can see so much more is available for them, and they want to have a conversation about how we can get the best for both of us, for the child, for the school. When the friend is like, hey, I don't feel heard when you're washing the dishes while we're having a conversation. And it's like, or as I said, in this case, it was a coaching situation, and that's a whole different thing when it's employed. Like, imagine going to a beauty salon and someone's like threading your eyebrows while watching the footy or watching the soap on TV, and then suddenly you've got half an eyebrow missing. Like, there are cases when you want a person's full attention, and then, if you're hiring for a service, to be able to say, actually, can you turn the television off and focus on what you're doing, please? That's not being demanding. That's, setting a boundary. When I hire you to work on my face, I want you to be looking at my face, not the television. But then there are other times, as I said, like Tad Hargrave's puttering sessions. I love how he's really clearly stated. If you go to his website, Marketing for Hippies, to look it up, he says, this is my full rate. This is my puttering session rate. These are the things that I might be doing. Then you get to decide, you're getting this discounted session and he may be doing these things. Otherwise, would you like to book the full session? It's like, back to the movies example. If you go to the cinema, You can pay the gold class, that's what's called in Australia, where you have the couch that reclines and they bring the food in and it's very limited seating. Or you can pay significantly less and have a lot more people and you don't have a couch that reclines or whatever. Or an airline, do you want to fly first class, which has a whole things available, or cattle class, economy, and it's a different thing. But if you're demanding first class or gold class experience on a cattle class ticket, that's a whole other thing. So you're allowed to have preferences 100%. You can convey your preferences, but if there is a boundary that has been stated and this is what's available within this container, then you don't really have the space to go, well, actually, I want that instead. Like if you listen to a free show and go, don't ramble about your family because I don't want to listen, then you're welcome not to, or to skip forward. The same when I go to the movies and I don't want to watch the ads, so I deliberately turn up 10 minutes late so I miss most of them. Or if I don't want to wait while the kids assemble at the school carnival, so I turn up late, but then find out I've turned up at the wrong place. So then I've got to actually get back in the car and move. So all of these things to say, beginning to have boundary conversations, beginning to identify what your preferences are, what you're available for, what you're not available for, the things that you like and the things that you don't like, and the places that you choose to invest your time, money, and energy is, conversations and thoughts and things that we should be having, rather than this is just what happens. I'm thinking of like platforms like Spotify, where you can, or YouTube, you can watch YouTube for free and it has ads and you can get to the point where you can hit skip or you can watch the ad, or you can invest in YouTube Premium and have an ad-free experience. Sometimes we get to have, our preferences catered for by investing, and that's a whole other story and scenario. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As I said, if you don't yet subscribe to me on YouTube, I would really, really love it. I'm getting towards almost reaching 500 subscribers, and that feels like a massive milestone. So for those of you who have already subscribed, thank you so much. If you haven't yet subscribed, you might be thinking, well, why would I subscribe? I can just listen to the podcast. On YouTube, I have the recorded coaching sessions. So if you go to the playlists, there's the coaching playlist there. There's the live tab. So I do some YouTube live. So there's some material that isn't available on the podcast that is exclusive to YouTube that I would love for you to check out. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.